All right. So as usual, we cut the music because I will be probably uploading this to YouTube later. So this is going to be the patch rundown for patch 0.23, which goes live later tonight. We actually have to end up stopping the stream early because of that. Not a damn thing going on nowadays. I gotcha. So, Aesop here with changes. We're going to see some exciting new things, brand new character, and brand new weapon type. So Linnox is being added to the game. I can pull up her character really quickly just so that we can glance over it. I guess I should have had this ready earlier. So this is going to be Linnox the Angler. She uses a whip, which is going to be the new weapon being added. Hey, Celis, how's it going? Her passive is anytime that she fishes, she has a chance to fish up an item, with it being like 75% chance for common, 15% chance for rare, and then like, I don't know. I think well, I know it's like 2 to 3% chance for epic. I think. I'm not 100% sure actually anymore. They have numbers on the patch, so we'll read it in here really quick. 85% chance for common, 14% for uncommon, 1% chance for rare. Okay, so that's it. And then every few seconds when she auto attacks, she gets a shield equal to around up to 10%, I think, for her HP. 8%. So it's 6 all the way up to 8%. I feel like that was changed. Oh no, wait, it's right here. Oh yeah, it is 10% of her HP, and then the cooldown is what scales with it. So that's good. Q is basically Darius Q, but on a giant fucking scale. And then as she lands Q, she gets a stack, which lowers the cooldown by 1 second. It's a max of 2 stacks, 4-second cooldown at all levels. So if you have both stacks, that ends up being a 2-second cooldown for Q. Looks really cool to me. She even heals if you hit the outer edge and deals extra damage. So W is another circle around her, but she does like a straight line damage as well. If you land the straight line attack, of course it does more damage, and you get a silence. Also, if you hit an opponent with the straight line, you get increased movement speed. I don't know why they didn't just lump it in right here, where it says dealing extra damage and silencing enemies, and on hit gains MS. E is basically Thresh. I think it's Thresh E, same ability. But yeah, it works exactly the same way, where it's like, it will always pull the enemy in the direction you used it, even if they're behind you. Her ultimate, you could think of it as Pike ultimate, but without the teleport. And if you hit both hits on the enemy, you get, they take bonus damage. Postella, thank you for the raid, man. Really appreciate it. We're going through a patch rundown at the moment, starting off with Linnox. Her new weapon is the grappling hook. So this is a point and click ability, as far as I know. Posh says, hey, I really appreciate it, man. Hey, Zion, how's it going? So I know that if the enemy is within a certain distance of you, they also get slowed for a little bit, but we'll see all this here. So this is how all of her abilities look. We can get onto the actual patch itself. We've already went over the abilities. Hitting an enemy with both the attacks makes them take damage for every meter. So the big thing about this is they take damage when they move, whether it's from you or away from you. So this is actually pretty interesting because we have a huge thing going on called the rat meta, where a lot of the champions with the highest placement and highest pick rate are Jackie and Magnus, being able to just survive till the end game and basically get placements they don't deserve. This helps combat that, so to speak, which wasn't the intention originally, but we could see if it ends up helping with that. She looks like she's going to be really interesting. These are all the whips. I'll probably be making some whip builds toward the end of the stream, trying to find something I want to play on her, because the character looks really interesting and I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. Systems, solo kill bonus now for solo mode kill bonus. In solo modes, whenever you get a kill, you will recover HP and SP, which is equal to 5 plus level, which will equal your percent. So at level 1, it'll be 5.5%. At level 2, it'll be 6%, and so on. And then it caps, I think, at 10%. Yeah, it looks like it caps at 10% no matter what. Sylvia Bike gives Sylvia a drift move. I mean, that's kind of what Q is, right? Bonus is not affected by healing reduction, that's nice. 5 seconds restored to your restricted area count, which is, I honestly think this is a great change. So this doesn't really push the kills over placement in my mind. What this does is it makes it less often that you'll be third party to not really be able to do anything about it, because like you'll just be a little too low, or you had to chase someone out of restricted for a kill and it wasted a bit of your timer. Gothweeb, thank you for the follow, man. Really appreciate it. Resting in final zone. Now it's not possible to rest in the final safe area. You can rest by consuming in the restricted area counts outside the final safe area. So what this means is like the final restricted circle, 5 plus character level divided by 2. So at level 1, it's 3%. No? Are you sure? This looks like it reads 5 plus killed. Like, I understand how it's written. It's kind of messed up, but it should be 5.5%, 6, 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, because then it ends up at level 10, it ends up at flat 10%, and then it stays that way. That's how I'm understanding it, at least. Because if that's the case, it doesn't make sense to me, because the jump from a level 9 to a level 10 is actually very large then. Cheers, man, you have to respect an informative stream. We're not always this informative, but I do try to be a little bit thorough with the patch rundowns. I appreciate it. You don't like no resting and restricted, that screws people that use timers so much? I think that's a good thing, though, because timer should be valuable. And I've always used timer in that way. So this is actually exactly the change I was hoping I would see. Because if you made it so that you could rest, or that you couldn't rest in when using timer would be pointless. Literally, there would be no reason to have 30 timer at the end of the game. Whereas with this change, timer is actually now a valuable resource. Still, it is before, but now even more, that you have to like warrant using that. And this change actually helps that even more. Ping distance has changed, negligible. Tutorials got an announcer. I've heard the tutorials can be a little annoying. They don't really give a bunch of good information, so that helps. Spectator mode, you can now see what players are crafting while spectating. That's a nice change, especially for the tournaments that get run. Ranked improvements, if you gain 0 points before reaching promotion, your tier status as pre-promotion doesn't end. I've never seen this, so I don't have input on that. It's now clearly displayed if you are up for pre-promotion or not. So maybe I will see it now. And then we've slightly increased the worth of kills in solo mode. Okay. Personally, I don't care for this change too much because I already think placement should be valued more than solo kills, but we'll have to see by how much. Nadine's Q will now always display normally. That's good because not being able to see your abilities is pretty shit. There was definitely a period there where Magnus wasn't able to see his weapon skills. So I can understand how frustrating that is. Worth an XP or LP? LP. Not XP. Offsets the ability to regen timer. Just get kills and don't rat into restricted. Yeah. Magnus E knockback now working properly. Thank God. We've been missing a lot of stuns because of this. Bike from Hell. Bike from Hell now goes in the right direction while casting other skills and after queuing up skills. If everyone here has been watching the last few times, I've been saying that I felt like Magnus Bike was broken because I was constantly going in directions that I wasn't before. But I kept writing it off as being a mechanical mistake. Now I know that I've been in the right, and it has been busted, and this makes me feel a lot better about this. The debug was so annoying, I had to turn off quick cast Q and then turn it back on to fix. That does sound like an annoying fix. And then bike stop and hold keys now work properly without jumping off. You can stop while on the bike? I'm kind of confused. Anyways, Shoichi's E gets a nerf by its 3 seconds at level 1, 2 seconds, 1 second, even at level 4, and then it's actually a buff at max. This really hurts because at the moment, Shoichi's max Q first, so his early game is hurt by this by quite a bit. with his late game being a little bit better, which might actually be like a decent change because I know late game Shoichi is actually in not an amazing spot. Max E last. Right, now there may be some incentive to at least putting in 1 point to E early so that you can get 2 seconds off that cooldown. Congrats for not being bad. Thanks, Saeed. Sylvia gets a buff in duos and squads. Oh, never mind. It's a nerf. 5% recovery nerf. And then her ultimate gets a nerf early and mid, and then late game it gets a solid buff. This is actually a decent buff to early 8 defense in the beginning of the game. Can actually be a huge changer for how much damage you're taking, depending on how much of your build is done at least. Adriana, she gets a buff of 3 AP per level, and then fire escapes, burning effect is last 3 more seconds. This actually will be very significant. Adriana is already a pretty solid character, and I don't feel like she needs any kind of major buff like this. So with this change, expect to see a lot more Adrianas doing a lot better. Adriana, in my opinion, is possibly a low A tier character. She may even sit towards the middle of the pack. This right here is mostly the big point because you're using this to escape normally, and the problem is the fire just would last so little that you could just walk through it, and by the time you're halfway through the fire, it's gone. So it really did not deter chasing, whereas now she'll be able to escape a lot easier. Or even cut off escape paths. So I would not underestimate this change. Aya, duo mode adjustments. 3% more damage in duos. Cool, don't play him. Simtex, root for Isil now, instead of being a flat 1 second, it's 0.5 and it scales up as he auto attacks you. This is a pointless change in my opinion. Really only helps it if you're like trying to escape from him. This isn't what Isil needs. In fact, I don't think Isil needs changes, so to speak, as much as just fucking nerf EB already. Honestly, gut that weapon. It's way too good. Moving on. Emma, SP regen per level was increased by 0.4. That's a good decent amount. She struggles with SP issues in the mid to early game. Dove Dealer, damage is increased at levels 2 and beyond. SP is cost is decreased. Indicator now displays normally when using Dove Dealer as for when the Dove is released. Nice. So it'll be easier for newer players to track when Dove is out, which is always great, lowering the skill floor for the character. Patrick gets a SP cost reduction as well, so another buff, and then Bunny Morph gets a buff in range and projectile speed. I think this is pretty nice. Projectile is way too slow at the moment, and the range increase is pretty solid too. I don't feel like Emma is terrible to the point where she needs a bunch of buffs. I think she's just not well suited for the current meta, but it is a new character and you want to see it done well, so I can understand. Yuki, 0.4 attack per level, adjustments for squads. Dual Swords is getting a damage nerf, I guess, to reel it back a little bit in compensation for the attack power nerf. Button Up now has cooldown reduction when attacking rather than when being hit, and has 2 seconds off it across the board. So these are actually some really nice changes. I would expect Yuki to be doing a lot better, especially Dual Swords, because it will trigger, for every auto attack on Dual Swords, you get 1 second off of, oh, it takes less damage? Oh, you're right, it's damage received, so that's a buff to his defense. So Dual Swords is looking really nice. Two-hand, of course, gets a buff from this too. Attack speed, dual sword, two-hand builds actually have a little bit of viability added back to them because of this change right here. So expect to see some new builds on Yuki. And then I've seen a hybrid dual swords build that takes advantage of low gear and building like crit to really just try to blow people up, and this may be the changes it needs to really see the light of day. The same build works really well on Jackie, by the way, but it's being tested at the moment on Yuki by Wraith Kiara at the moment. So Kiara, R now displays normally when activated. Nerf this character. I fucking hate it. Fiora, R now automatically turns off when resurrecting. Cool. Duo mode adjustments. Glove gets a buff by 3%.
Time to troll!
Fight KB6, thank you for the follow, man. Really appreciate it. First attack E no longer causes problems when used at the same time as normal attack. Nice, more bug fixes. There's actually a reason to play Dual Swords Yuki out. Yeah. Shuriken Heijin gets buffed in all modes by 2%, and damage taken is lowered by 3% in all modes. Oh, yeah, it's in all modes. Okay. Jukai no longer ignores Heijin's Sphere when using Burnt to a Crisp. So, it's technically a Jukai nerf, while also being agent buff. Hey, Orange, welcome to the stream, man. Fuck both these characters. Nerf them both, in my opinion. Shuriken, though, honestly is pretty weak and could use the adjustments, so I feel like this is a good change. So now we get to the weapons, and this is where a bulk of the interesting changes are, I think. Guitar gets its starter guitar. Which one is that? Let me pull up the game and check. Catalog, heart, guitars. Oh, you can build a guitar now. That's huge. That's actually really big, because one of the biggest complaints we've had is, where is it? This is unbuildable. It's literally not craftable because you won't have another guitar to make it with. And now, because you would always have your purple guitar and then you would find meteorite. Now you can actually make this. So Innate Heart might have something they'll want to transition to instead of having Satisfaction or the Wall. They can upgrade to Wonderful Tonight, because otherwise, oh well, I guess Teen Spirit, I don't know. Teen Spirit might still technically be better in most cases, but you can upgrade to Wonderful Tonight if you were doing the Wall or Satisfaction, which I think this would be a decent upgrade maybe from the Wall. I don't know about the rest, but it's possible. That's the thing. It's doable. She can finally change her build mid-game. Amazing change. This is something that's actually great. Stairway to Heaven gets +4 attack power, and Wonderful Tonight had its attack speed changed from 45%. Why? Why would you do this? Now there's no reason to build it. And in Nimble Neuron, you take one great step forward and immediately take 2 steps back. This is pointless. Why? God. Attack power hard is now a thing? Not anymore. The moment I get excited about seeing something new, they take it away. I don't understand this. Sad life. All right. Cloak and Dagger now no longer occasionally drops invisibility. It's great. It's one of the main key points of the weapon ability. Mount Slicer gets another nerf to flat skill amp, but an AP buff. This is good. This is one of the most controversial changes in the patch, in my opinion. Frag did not need this level of buff. It already sees a 26% win rate on Jackie. And that's the thing. Yeah, cool. This change makes it so that Shoichi and Jukai will want to build Frag now instead of sticking to Mount Slicer. But this change absolutely makes Jackie insane. I promise you, Jackie with Frag is going to have a 35% win rate or higher. This is way over putting the boundary of the power level she needs to be at. Dagger Jackie is already strong to the point where it's better than Dual Blades in every way, and it's only getting buffed more. So it's like, this is not the change you want to see. If you want to make it so that Shoichi and Jukai can use this weapon, give it some fucking spell amp. Give it like fucking, I don't know, 10 flat spell amp, which would be shit on Jackie. And then they would want to use it. It'd be perfect then. Harp, skill amp goes from 38 to 33. Cool. Not really necessary. Dual Swords mastery per level. Extra normal attack damage goes up by 3%. It's always really nice. As I mentioned before, Dual Swords Jackie is just strictly worse than Dagger Jackie, so this kind of change is nice. It also helps Dual Swords Yuki, which we already know to be on the weak side. With all these changes, Dual Swords Yuki might actually be viable. There will have to be a little bit more testing done though. Nunchuck gets 0.3% more skill amp. Cool. Two-hand sword. Twentian gets a movement speed buff. Mono gets 4 extra attack. Dawn's-Leaf gets 10 extra attack. This is probably the most interesting change in this, in my opinion, because Mono is already a great weapon, but too difficult to build and not worth the stats you get from it. Dawn's-Leaf is literally just Mono with 2% more lifesteal. So Dawn's-Leaf now is like an actual upgrade from Mono, which is pretty decent. Well, you're gonna have rats for Lennox to fish up, I guess, right? All right, so Sniper. Snipers get buffed, movement speed across the board, and then Long Rifle no longer has movement speed, and Intervention gets a 5 attack power buff. Cool. The movement speed's pretty nice. Snipers may start coming back into the meta. Snipers haven't been meta since hot swapping got removed from the game, because that was the only thing keeping them in viability, being able to use the pistol weapon skill to reposition. Spear, attack speed mastery gets buffed, Bang 10 gets nerfed, Lance of Poseidon has movement speed reduction nerfed, and Dragon Guanado. So you'll notice a lot of these weapons that have movement speed reductions are getting buffed, because movement speed is actually like really key, and anything that has negative movement speed has to be really fucking good to make it worth it. A good example is Knight's Creed. Knight's Creed gives you a lot of bonus damage, so the negative movement speed actually doesn't matter too much, because in most cases you're using it to burst out an opponent, so the movement speed is kind of meh. These are good changes. This helps Spear Fiora, which I don't feel like is terrible, but I can definitely see the case for saying that it's worse than Rapier Fiora. Tonfa. Tactical Tonfa gets another AP buff. Mysog gets another AP buff. Tonfas are pretty shit. We're pushing them back towards being the area where they're like decent as we get towards these changes. I think Tactical Tonfa is kind of overstated at this point, and I'm not sure if we want to see more buffs on this, because that means that as Hyunwoo gets buffed, Tactical Tonfa may end up being like just over the edge with him. Tactical Tonfa grouping makes me sad. Yeah. Throw. David Sling gets its 5 AP buff revoked. Thank fucking God. It's still amazing, still a great weapon. It never needed that buff to begin with. We're back to the beginning. The most disappointing change of the patch to me. Hammer of Dodka loses 100% HP regen and gains 20 innate. Regen Magnus is dead, boys. That's it. The memes are done. We can lay our sweet prince to rest. Pour one out for the Regen boys. They've lost one of their fellow people. There's no reason now to play Regen Magnus over Regen Hyunwoo, in my opinion. Regen Hyunwoo is just going to be strictly better in every case. And Regen Yuki will probably be the de facto best Regen character. This nerf was needed, though, as Hammer of Dodka made Magnus's roaching capabilities way too good, and you would basically just see games where Magnus would just roach his way to getting his full Regen build and kind of Exodia the game away. Either getting second or first place pretty consistently. It had like a 14% win rate. Armor. Commander's Armor gets 2% buff, Cabana gets a 2% buff, Rocker Jacket gets a 4 normal attack damage reduction nerf. Innate Magnus, I will be looking into some possible builds using Hammer of Dodga with attack speed for the early game, where you look to transition to Magical Stick or Morningstar. But I feel like it will be strictly worse than Mallet. We will test, though. For sure. I don't see why these buffs are being done when there's, like, already some pretty good spellcasters in the meta. So, for instance, we've got Zahir, Gaijin, Jukai, Spellant Magnus is pretty decent. Adriana doesn't use these weapons, but Sella sometimes does. And I don't feel like they're weak at all, so I don't know why these are getting buffed. This nerf is definitely welcome, as Rocker's Jacket, I think, at the moment, provides probably the best stat line out of any chess piece, barring rare item upgrades. Imperial Bridgenet, 2% upgrade, increase, same as before, though I think in this case it kind of matters because this is technically worse than Crown in a lot of cases because of the EHP that Crown provides, and I feel like they're actually giving you a reason to go Imperial Bridgenet now over Crown. But in my opinion, you just need to nerf Crown's HP pool from 300 to 200. Or reduce its percentage skill amp to 8%. They buff 3 Jukai items and 2 Hyejin items. Yeah. It's because Rocker Jacket does Commander's Armor job way better. I mean, it kind of does, to be honest. Sheath of Sao Jahan sees a 3 AP rate. Actually, what both of these is for is actually for something different, but in some cases it does do Commander's Armor's job better. And we'll go over what these nerfs are targeted for. Sword Stopper gets a 4 buff. Item's still shit. Not gonna build it. Steel Shield, Creed of the Night gets a 5 defense. Nerf, but it gets a movement speed buff, which I think is pretty decent. So I feel like this is a fair change. Radar gets an attack speed buff. Only more solidifies it now as being the offensive counterpart to Cube Watch. In my opinion, if you had to choose between Cube Watch and Radar, you would almost always go Radar. Thank you, Gothweeb. Sorry if the content's not so much what you've been looking for, but we're almost done here. Have a good night, man. Feather Boots, 5% attack speed buff. Always great to see. Lace Quiver, 5% attack speed buff. Revenge of Gojon gets a 2% buff. Snare traps have had some root duration removed. Spawn points for Cemetery, Pond, Beach, Factory were all moved more to the center, which is great because sometimes you could get some pretty shit spawns here. Boxes get fixed, and then other bullshit. So quickly on from there to what I think those are targeting for is builds like this. This item combination and pairing of Rocker's Jacket sheath with magazine, any fucking boots, a good helmet, normally crown. Imperial crown for most people I think is fine. Tac Ops is a good secondary. And then your weapon. This is fucking great, and you can play this on anybody. This is pretty much the same fucking build that Adriana uses, except she'd want different boots. She'd want straight jackets, feather boots, EOD, Hermes, any of those. This shit's buff. This shit's insane. Or like, these need to be nerfed. These need to be nerfed a lot. So that's my Sylvia buff. Not exactly. Or build. Like, this shit's way too good. This combination needed to be nerfed, and the fact that it is being nerfed in both its defensive capabilities and its offensive capabilities is really nice to see.